all across America and around the world. This is Veterans Radio. This is Veterans Radio.
Welcome to Veterans Radio. I am Jim Fausone. I'm the officer of the deck today. We've got some great programs for you. I think you'll find very interesting. We always want to remind you, you can find more about Veterans Radio at its Facebook site or by going to veteransradio.net, where we're on the web 24/7. You can find a lot of our podcasts there as well. We post new ones every Tuesday, so you can get a new story, a new interview, something you didn't know before by going to veteransradio.net. And before we get started, we want to thank our sponsors. First up, we want to thank National Veteran Business Development Council, NVBDC.org. It was established to certify both service-disabled and veteran-owned businesses. You'll find out how they can help your business by going to NVBDC.org. We want to thank Legal Help for Veterans. Legal Help for Veterans fights for veterans' disability rights all across the nation. You can reach them at 800-693-4800 or on the web at legalhelpforveterans.com. We also want to thank our latest national sponsor, Veteran Lending Council. It is a community dedicated to educating lenders, realtors, and veterans on the VA Home Loan Benefit Program. You can check them out on Facebook and other social media outlets. Welcome, I'm Jim Fausone, and this is Veterans Radio's Spotlight on National Veteran Business Development Council, NVBDC.org. Veterans Radio America has a partnership with NVBDC, the nation's leading third-party authority for certification of veteran-owned businesses of really all sizes. NVBDC is a 501c3 nonprofit that was established in 2013. It addresses the growing need to identify and certify both service-disabled and veteran-owned businesses for the corporate marketplace, but also for government work now, and we have some exciting things to talk about. The NVBDC administers a rigorous certification process to design and withstand the scrutiny of governmental and corporate entities seeking to utilize such certified businesses. We're glad to have back Keith King, the founder and CEO of NVBDC, to talk about a new arrangement, an alliance, really an important step here in veteran business certification. Keith, welcome back to Veterans Radio.
Thanks, Jim. It's good to be back.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the newly minted Strategic Alliance Memorandum that you have had executed on behalf of the National Veteran Business Development Council with the United States Small Business Administration. Tell me what this is about.
Well, what it's about is a official recognition, if you will, as well as a agreement on how not only we can work together, but those things that we have been saying all along about this transition from the VA to the SBA in the sense of the level of certification, how this is going to work, how this transition, and who's going to be at least what I call the seat at the table. And what this, memorandum did is put that officially in writing. And, what it talks about is having, a common mission, which is obviously to help our veteran businesses, which is why we created the NVBDC in the first place. But this one in particular, I'm pleased about because what happens in these kind of agreements is that it's not just generic. It is, in fact, specific. And we have terms, if you will, and conditions. We agree to, the scope of responsibility that the SBA now has to the NVBDC. something as mundane as providing up-to-date information about the SBA's programs and services. Well, Jim, we have been fighting hard to make sure that the SBA was in fact telling us what they're doing. And so that's the very first point, if you will, in the SBA's responsibilities to us, because one of the things that we've been trying to do is make sure, and I know some people, are looking at the CVE and the VA program and still believing that, it was a good program or whatever. It is a basic minimal type of program, which, as you may remember, the numbers are staggering when you start looking at the term I use is fraud, but what the government uses, I love their euphemisms. They refer to them as ineligible contracts. So if I play nice and say, ineligible contracts to the tune of $500 million a year, that to us is a major issue. That's a major problem. And as I've told their director, if all you do is take the VA program and move it over to the SBA without making all these changes, all you're going to do is continue the ineligible contracts.
Well, and let me highlight this a little bit, and I'll be less diplomatic. You have to be a little more diplomatic. I don't have to be. The VA certification of a veteran-owned business program kind of was, hey, you take care of this, and they weren't really good at it. They don't know how to do it. And there were a lot of self-certified and certified veteran-owned businesses under that were really kind of a sham. That the veteran didn't really run or own the business, which is critical to this whole issue, and that's where a rigorous program of certification comes in with NVBDC. So when you have $500 million a year of sort of sham contracts that are really not going to the VA, well, that gets people's attention, and ultimately Congress said, you know what, we ought to move this out of the VA world and move it over to the SBA world, because there are small business experts. They're better at this. And right from the beginning when they started that, I know you and I talked and you said, we somehow have to help SBA make sure they do it right. And that's really where this is the culmination of that desire, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes. And the thing then with the SBA, and I do want to acknowledge them in this particular sense, I guess when you knock on the door, nobody answers, in and of itself is a clue, and thankfully, the people who are actually trying to put this program together in the sense of the transition to the SBA answered the door, said, yeah, what do you want? And we have now been actively engaged in months, a year and a half, and longer now, that we've been involved in what do I want. And what this does is it at least says, yeah, we see you, we recognize you, we understand that you have knowledge, and we want to hear it. So, what we're particularly pleased with is to make sure that the most obvious kind of errors and the most obvious kind of lack of real certification is at least addressed. It's kind of like I've told, their associate administrator that, look, you guys got to be able, it's not just doing a paperwork. Somebody actually has to understand what you're reading. I think I mentioned to you once before, Jim, what the expression I used was grandma's recipe. You go into their computer system and it says, here, upload, your IRS documents, and somebody uploads grandma's recipe. Well, the problem is nobody was checking it. No one was reading it, but in the checkbox said, oh, yeah, we got your IRS records. Seriously?
Yeah, right.
And the operational control and authority, which you're talking about, well, that was one of the absolute reasons you do an on-site visit. well, what was at once a required annual moved to, well, maybe we will, maybe we won't every 3 years. We just saw the amount of fraud mushroom. I mean, the analogy I use on that, and I think any businessman would understand that, hey, I certified you today, tomorrow you decide to sell your business to a non-veteran.
Right, you restructure it all, yep. This is a two-way street, though. What I really like here is NVBDC has all this great experience in how to do this, and it's going to be able to talk directly with SBA about what you've learned and what they ought to think about. But the reverse road is this Strategic Alliance memorandum that you have with SBA also requires them to provide you information on all kinds of different things that you then get to push out to certified veteran-owned businesses that you've done. So it's really kind of a two-way street, isn't it?
Yes. And that's really why it took as long as it did, and why I was, wanted to share this with not only, your audience, but, have them hopefully, share it with other veteran businesses, because this memorandum is a strategic alliance. And I've signed a lot of MOUs, but this is the first time I've had this actual title of a strategic alliance. And when you actually read the language, which I know you have, it's pretty much exactly what it says. It's an alliance. They're going to do X, we're going to do Y, and we're going to work together, as I indicated to you, as kind of a joint mission here, because the good news is that I think that they are legitimately concerned about not only stopping the fraud or the ineligible contracts, but I think that they are legitimately looking at, okay, we were told to do a job, how do we do it? And how do we do it to a standard that we know at least exists?
Well, and you guys are the gold standard. I don't want you to have to toot your own horn. I'll toot it for you, because you are the gold standard. And this alliance has the SBA going, yeah, how do we do this? How do we do it to the right standard? Geez, we ought to associate ourselves with the guys who are the gold standard. Yeah. So, you're right. I did read this, and like a good lawyer, I went all the way to the last page, because I wanted to know, who did you sign this with? Was it just some low-level, federal bureaucrat? And I'm pleased to see that it was executed on behalf of the U.S. Small Business Administration, not only by the Office of Strategic Alliances, but maybe more importantly, the Office of Veteran Business Development and its associate administrator. So it seems to me, and I guess this is my question to you, it sounds like you're talking to the right guys.
Well, thank you. And that's something that, we have made an effort, and I use the analogy of knocking on doors. And we were literally knocking on the wrong door until actually when I found Larry Stubblefield as the associate administrator. And once we talked to him, he helped us open the other doors that, as you mentioned, the Office of Strategic Alliances. And the other thing is that he has been a supporter. He is a veteran, which to me made me feel better, because I think I mentioned to you before, when we first got the calls from the White House, we were kind of giddy about it. But then as things changed, what really became what I considered to be kind of the serious is when we start getting calls from the House and the Senate committees on not only Veterans Affairs, but on basically the operation, if you will, of the government affairs, which is the one that really is responsible for, hey, how is our government working? And that was a nonpartisan joint committee that called me on that. And their first question was, can you stop the fraud? And I said, yeah. And they said, how? And I gave them a quick idea. And they said, okay, you will be hearing from us. Well, that is another one of the knocking on the right doors, if you will, because I believe that kind of conversation at least shows to me now that we have people in our government who are at least trying to make sure that the opportunities that they promise for our veteran businesses are going to be at least not only continued, but continued in what I consider, and I know you and I have talked about fairness of this stuff, in a more fair, responsible way. So I'm happy. I'm pleased that we've had this alliance put together. I feel much better about not only where we're going, but as you know, we put this together for what I call the younger generation, the next generation, the younger vets. I'm a Vietnam vet, and I'm referred to as the old guy all the time, which at this point I'm just happy to be old.
To be referred to, yeah.
Call me anything you want, just don't call me late for dinner kind of thing, But hey, this is a step, as far as I'm concerned, in the right direction to make sure that this program lives and lives on, and it isn't something that somebody's just going to come in and wipe out.
Well, we're really glad that Keith King, founder and CEO of NVBDC, had some time for us today. NVBDC is the nation's leading third-party authority for certification of veteran-owned businesses. Keith is announcing this strategic alliance with the U.S. SBA here on Veterans Radio, so we're thrilled to have you do that, Keith. But I'm going to check back with you because this is freshly minted. The ink just dried. I'm going to be checking back with you in 6 months and 12 months and saying, how's it really working out? Is the SBA really holding up its end of the deal? Are we helping veterans businesses? So that's coming, don't you?
Well, yeah, and actually, I don't want you to wait that long because the push date is January 2nd or January 3rd of 2023 when the SBA goes live and the CVE, in essence, dies. So we have a tremendous amount of other activity going on right now in federal contracting, RFPs and RFQs, RFIs, all of those kind of documents have been issued. We're looking at negotiating some of those other ones where they have already said, look, we can't, this is like an elephant, and, you can't eat it all in one setting. So they're already taking and breaking it up. And again, because of this alliance, at least now we're seeing, okay, what are they trying to do? What are the pieces? And can we affect those pieces in the sense of, hey, if you can take a look at something and that is either a good idea, it's a solid idea, or it's not going to work. And I salute the fact that at least now we're in the information stream so that we can get input to them quickly. In fact, as I mentioned, Jim, before the call, this is what I'm working on right now because we are trying to get back to them to say, hey, wait a minute, we got a problem with, what you're putting out. So I really believe that what we are now doing is, in fact, part of our future, part of the charter, if you will, of our organization to make sure that our veterans are having a fair opportunity for contracting. And I want to minimize as much of the loss of ineligible contracts or the fraud amount of $500 million a year. I just think about how much that would do good if it was a real veteran business that was receiving these funds, and look at the impact it would have on that person's life, their family, their community. And that's why we started all this in the first place.
Well, we thank you, Keith King, CEO of NVBDC, for spending a little time with Veterans Radio, updating us on the Strategic Alliance with SBA, and we look forward to talking again. And I'll let you get back to writing that letter that I interrupted.
I almost said, who is that? And should I really bother taking that call? And I saw it was you, and I said, okay, for Jim, I'll take it.
Well, thanks, Keith. We appreciate it.
And I thank you, and again, I thank you guys and for what you guys do in keeping our veterans informed of all the activities. So we'll be talking soon, Jim.
And I want to thank everybody for listening to Veterans Radio today. I am Jim Fausone, It's been a pleasure to be your host. I'm a veterans disability lawyer at Legal Help for Veterans, and you can reach us at 800-693-4800 or legalhelpforveterans.com on the web. You can follow Veterans Radio on Facebook and listen to its podcasts and internet radio shows by going to veteransradio.net. And until next time, you are dismissed.
If you have a VA claim denied by the Board of Veterans Appeals, contact Legal Help for Veterans at 1-800-693-4800. They're experts in handling cases before the U.S. Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims. Their number again, 1-800-693-4800.
We again want to thank our national sponsors, the National Veterans Business Development Council, NVBDC.org, VA Ann Arbor Health Care System, the Vietnam Veterans of America Charles S. Kettles Chapter, Ann Arbor, Michigan, VFW Graf O'Hara Post 423 in Ann Arbor, and the American Legion Press Corn Post 46, also in Ann Arbor. And the Veterans Lending Council, which advises lenders, realtors, buyers about VA Home Loan Program, and you can find them on Facebook. We appreciate all your support. You can go to veteransradio.net, click on the sponsor level, and continue to support keeping Veterans Radio on the air. And until next time, you are dismissed.
With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.